pilot who disobeyed orders and saved 1,000 lives. The automatic camera clicked steadily as Major Robert Cowboy Stout SF-6F Hellcat swept high above Peleliu on September 12, 1944. His mission was simple: photograph the northern airfield and return to the USS Hornet. Intelligence said the airfield was abandoned, just another strip of jungle wrecked by bombing runs. But what Stout saw below made his blood run cold. The airfield was alive. Dozens of Japanese aircraft, Mitsubishi Zeros, Nakajima bombers, lined up wingtip to wingtip. Fuel drums stacked in perfect rows, ground crews swarming. They weren't abandoned. They were preparing for a massive strike. Stout quickly counted at least 40 planes, armed, fueled, ready for takeoff. And he knew exactly who their targets would be. In just 3 days, 28,000 U.S. Marines were scheduled to storm the beaches of Peleliu, one of the largest amphibious assaults in the Pacific. Those 40 aircraft were positioned to massacre them before they even reached the shore. Stout's orders were clear: spot the enemy, radio coordinates, and return to base. A recon pilot's job was to observe and report, not engage. But Stout also understood how military bureaucracy worked. By the time he landed, filed his report, and a strike team was assembled, hours would pass, maybe a full day. By then, those Japanese aircraft would scatter, hide, or launch. And when they did, hundreds, maybe thousands of Marines would die before setting foot on that beach. Stout stared down at the airfield, thinking fast. The planes were parked too close together, fuel drums all around. One good hit could turn that whole airfield into an inferno. He checked his guns. 6 50 caliber Brownings, 2,400 rounds total, just 12 seconds of fire. Not enough to destroy 40 planes individually, but maybe enough to light the fuse. Stout climbed higher, set his jaw, and made his decision. He would disobey orders. He would attack. He rolled the Hellcat into a dive. The altimeter unwound as jungle filled his view. At 2,000 feet, he leveled off and roared in at nearly 400 miles per hour, just 50 feet above the trees. Japanese ground crews looked up in confusion as the blue Hellcat screamed overhead. Some froze, others dove for cover. None reached their guns in time. Stout lined up on the northern row of aircraft and squeezed the trigger. 6 machine guns erupted in a thunderous roar. Tracers ripped across the tarmac, tearing through the thin aluminum of a Zero. Fuel sprayed from ruptured tanks. He shifted aim right into a stack of fuel drums. The explosion was instant. A fireball engulfed the nearest bombers, flames leaping 50 feet into the air. The shockwave rattled his Hellcat. Behind him, the airfield turned into chaos. One burning plane ignited the next, and then another, a chain reaction of explosions. In seconds, half the northern line was engulfed. Anti-aircraft guns finally opened up, but Stout was already climbing, weaving, dodging tracers that sliced past his wings. Rounds slammed into his fuselage, warning lights flashing, but the Hellcat kept flying. He looked down. The northern field was a sea of fire, but 20 more aircraft still sat untouched. Half his ammo was gone. He had 6 seconds of firing time left. Most pilots would have broken off, but not Cowboy Stout. He rolled over and dove again, straight into a storm of anti-aircraft fire. Tracers filled the air like fiery hornets. The Hellcat shook under impact, but Stout stayed locked in. He lined up on a row of bombers and fired. Bullets walked across the tarmac, slicing into fuel trucks and ammunition crates. Then another explosion, bigger than before. A fuel truck erupted, flipping a bomber onto its back. Secondary explosions tore through the southern end of the field. When the smoke cleared, both ends of the airfield were burning. Stout's guns clicked empty. The Hellcat was damaged and leaking oil, but the mission was done. Below him, the entire Japanese airfield was an inferno. Every aircraft, every fuel drum, every structure consumed in fire. He turned for the ocean and limped back toward the Hornet. The flight back felt endless. Hydraulics were failing, the controls sluggish, the oil pressure dropping. When he finally spotted the carrier, he radioed. Aircraft damaged, uncertain about landing gear, requesting priority landing. One wheel refused to lock. He came in hot, slammed onto the deck, caught the second wire hard enough to buckle the metal. Crewmen swarmed the burning Hellcat. The tail was shredded, the paint scorched black. Officers demanded to know what had happened. Stout gave a simple report. The airfield wasn't abandoned. It was full of enemy planes preparing to attack the invasion fleet. They're gone now. The officers stared at him. Gone. All 40, Stout said. Destroyed. Reconnaissance photos the next day confirmed it. The northern airfield at Peleliu was nothing but blackened wreckage. Exactly 40 burned-out aircraft. Fuel dumps obliterated. Hangars reduced to rubble. The Marines who landed 3 days later faced brutal fighting, but not a single Japanese air attack. They had total air superiority because one pilot had refused to follow orders. The Navy awarded Major Robert Cowboy Stout the Navy Cross, the second highest decoration for valor. The citation praised his extraordinary heroism and aggressive fighting spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. Historians later calculated that his 8-minute attack likely saved between 500 and 1,000 Marine lives on the first day of the invasion. After the war, Stout returned home quietly. He rarely spoke of what he'd done. The Navy Cross stayed in a drawer. When people asked, he'd shrug and say, "I saw planes that needed destroying, so I destroyed them." Any pilot would have done the same. But not every pilot would have. Most would have followed orders, and the Marines on those beaches would have paid the price. Stout's disobedience wasn't rebellion, it was clarity. The understanding that sometimes doing what's right means breaking the rules. His story is now studied in military academies as a lesson in initiative and judgment. Because Robert Cowboy Stout proved that the person on the ground or in the cockpit often sees the truth long before command does. He died in 2005 at the age of 89, his story nearly forgotten. But his 8 minutes of courage remain one of the most successful solo airstrikes in naval history. 40 enemy aircraft destroyed, 1,000 lives saved, and all because one man, faced with a choice between orders and duty, chose duty.